So good morning. This is lecture number 20 in ME303 heat transfer. In the last lecture, we started with a discussion on convection. So let's do a very quick recap as to what we discussed in the last lecture. So we started with the mechanism of convection. We did a quick recap of what the mechanism of convection is. We talked about the boundary layers. So we know that there's a boundary layer that develops over a surface that is sitting in free stream flow. And then the first thing we talked about was the velocity boundary layer. So we talked about the idea of the shear stress inside the fluid because of the no slip condition on the surface of the plate. If you put a plate in a fluid which is a uniform flow of U infinity, then this boundary layer that develops grows with distance x, and because of which what we see is that the wall shear stress, which is mu times del u by del y at y equal to 0, this wall shear stress is going to decrease as you go further from left to right in the plate. Again, this wall shear stress is extremely important as fluid mechanicists, because we would want to know what is a force applied by the fluid on the plate and vice versa, because all we want is, in some cases we want to minimize this force, or in some cases we want to maximize this force depending on the application. Okay, and we also non-dimensionalize that by using a coefficient CF, which is the coefficient of friction, which is simply a non-dimensionalized wall shear stress. So it's important to understand how the wall shear stress varies as a function of x in this plate. Okay, a plate is a simple symmetry. You can also have a curved symmetry, but the ideas are very similar. Then we drew the same parallel for thermal boundary layers. So we said that as you have a velocity, you have a thermal boundary layer as well. And again, because of, since you have a boundary layer, so that means the temperature varies from the plate temperature, that is Ts, the surface temperature, to T infinity, whichever is larger depending on the application. So again, you have the temperature gradient del T by del Y at y equal to 0. That is extremely important because we want to find the rate of heat flow, which depends on this gradient. Okay, and this also then helps us to calculate the heat transfer coefficient, which then can be used in the Newton's law of cooling to easily calculate the value of Q. Okay, and then we also saw that as you go further from left to right, you see that your del T by del Y reduces, because now the boundary layer is growing with x. So that means that the fluid has a greater distance to go from Ts to T infinity. So the gradients reduce. And this also tells us that the heat transfer coefficient H reduces as you go from left to right. Again, very important, because we would want to know what is the rate of heat flow from the surface at different x positions. Because that is what the aim is in most problems. Okay. That is pretty much it, what we discussed in the previous lecture. And today we'll continue the discussion by discussing a bit further into laminar boundary layers for temperature. And then in the subsequent lectures, we will talk about solving the equations of convection. So like you had in conduction, we also have equations for convection, because remember that to find H, you have to find, this is a function of del T by del Y at y equal to 0. So you have to know the temperature profile inside the boundary layer, and then you can find this del T by del Y at y equal to 0 and find the value of, find the functional form of H. So like you had in conduction, we'll have an equation for convection where you can solve this differential equation to get the value of temperature as a function of y. So we'll do that in a while. But before that, we had one discussion topic left, which was the local and global form of, so the local and average heat transfer coefficient H. So the term local means that it is at a given position, at a given x position. Okay, like you had instantaneous that talks about a particular time rather than an average. So we use the word local to localize the value of h as a function of a particular spatial point. Then this plate that we've been talking about, so you have T infinity, and then you have on the free stream, and then you have T surface on the surface, and you would want to find your local heat transfer coefficient, that is H. So remember what the definition of H was. So H we wrote, we use the Newton's law of cooling to find Q. So Q was H times A. In this case, we call it dA because the geometry that you have, maybe let's say, is curved. Okay. So it could be an aerofoil that you're talking about, which has some flow happening across it, against it, and you could also have a circular or cylindrical body that you have flow happening against it. So in this case, it's not a flat plate, but it's a curved surface. So it can be that as well, but in any case, we integrate over the surface area. In this case, the surface area is defined as these thin strips. So we integrate over the surface areas, and then you have Ts minus T infinity. Okay. This was how you defined h as a function of x, and then you integrate over the surface area, which again dA can be written in terms of x, which is the distance from the leading edge. In most cases, you would want to find the q across the whole body. Okay. So what we do is we say that let us say that we can define an average heat transfer coefficient in such a way so that the total heat that is flowing out from the body is written as an average value of h times the total area. So this is the total surface area times Ts minus T infinity. Very common idea when defining averages. So this is how we define an average h bar. So if I equate 1 and 2, because the total heat loss from the surface is the same, then that helps you find h bar. So remember, in the first integral, well, in the only integral we have here, h is a function of x, so we have to keep it inside the integral. Then you have a dA, but Ts minus T infinity can be taken out. So this cancels. And then we have our h bar. Okay. So in many cases, you will be given the functional form, you will be given the h bar value for a given geometry, and then you'll have to find out the q. You should understand what this h bar means. So you simply have to multiply h bar by the total surface area, and then you multiply that by the potential difference, that is Ts minus T infinity, and that gives you the value of q. In many cases, you have to find the value of h bar given the h value. So you find it using this definition of h bar. Okay, so this h bar is called the average heat transfer coefficient. Is that clear? Now for a flat plate, the h bar simplifies a bit. Now remember, what is the surface area? We're talking about h varying as a function of x. In this case, we have this kind of a flat plate, and the flow is happening across this flat plate. So you know that h varies as a function of x. So when I say I want to integrate over the complete surface area, and surface area in fact is written as well, this is, let's say, L. So your the differential areas are whatever the width of the plate is times dx. This becomes the total surface area becomes W times L, and the integral happens over x here. Well, so x goes from 0 to the length of the plate, and then you have h as a function of x times dx times w. So your dA is the width times dx. So w is a constant, it gets cancelled, and what you're left with is 1 by L integral 0 to L h dx. That is how we define an average heat transfer coefficient for a flat plate. Okay. So let's solve a problem. This one's example 6.1. I'm not doing proper tutorials in this course for this semester because tutorials are more useful when we have people sitting in the room trying problems by themselves. But since you are sitting at home and not in a class, so it's difficult to run a tutorial. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to include solved examples inside during the lectures, and I may also have short tutorial sessions like the previous two sessions. Okay, but I will upload problem sets so that you can try problems by yourself. So these will be interesting problems. That will remember that the NSEM exam ultimately is going to be subjective. So you'll have to solve problems for the NSEM exam. Okay. So make it a habit, if it is not developed yet, to solve problems which are subjective type for the NSEM practice. Okay, so you have a flat plate in this case, and this flat plate has a heat transfer coefficient, the local heat transfer coefficient, which is given to you as some constant A times x to the power of minus 0.1. So what we are seeing is that your heat transfer coefficient H, now remember that we're talking about the laminar regime here. We haven't still talked about turbulent boundary layers, so we'll talk about laminar layers. So in this case, you have H is x to the power of minus 0.1. So what do we see? We see that as x increases, your H decreases. And is that in line with what we discussed earlier?
Yes, sir.
Right. So we earlier discussed that H depends on del T by del Y at the surface. And as you go further from left to right, what you see is that since the boundary layer thickness is increasing, so del T by del Y on the surface is decreasing because now the fluid has a greater thickness to go from Ts to T infinity. So as del T by del Y on the surface decreases as you go from left to right, as the x increases, similarly the H, or the heat transfer coefficient, also reduces as you go from left to right. And that is what we see in this expression as well. Okay, so that is this expression is um, giving the right trend. Now what you have to do is, for this case, you have to find the average heat transfer coefficient. This the book calls Hx. Okay, so we'll use the same thing by the local heat transfer coefficient. So this Hx bar, what this means is, for this so remember, average is taken over the length of the plate. So what they're saying is, you take some x, and when I say Hx bar, that means it's the average heat transfer coefficient for that distance from 0 to x. Okay, so Hx bar is 1 by x integral 0 to x, and then we have to use a different variable, so we'll call it x tilde. So what I really want to find is, what is the value of the average, so any distance for the plate I take, what is the value of the average from the beginning of the plate to that distance, and I want to compare that heat transfer coefficient to the local heat transfer coefficient at that exact x. So Hx means the local heat transfer coefficient, and Hx bar means the average heat transfer coefficient from x equal to 0 to x equal to that particular distance x. Well, Hx bar is easy to calculate. Okay, so the integral of x to the power of minus 0.1, a is a constant here, so I can take the a out, and then I have to integrate x tilde to the power of minus 0.1. So this becomes x tilde to the power of minus 0.1 plus 1 upon, and this has the limits from 0 to x. So x tilde to the power of 1 minus 0.1, that is 0.9, and then I put the limit from 0 to x, so that means x to the power of 0.9. And then we have 0.9 at the denominator. Then we have 1 minus 0.9, so that becomes approximately 1.1. And then we have a, and then you have x to the power of 0.9 minus 1, because you have a x in the denominator. That becomes x to the power of minus 0.1. It's interesting that for this particular case, we get the same functional form for the trend of hx bar and hx. Both of them vary as x to the power of minus 0.1. So the only difference is that hx bar is is 1.1 times of hx. So I can write this as hx bar is okay. In fact, if I was to plot this, both of them Something's happened to painkillers here. No. Okay. Well, I think this color's not quite dark. So what we see is that my HX bar is slightly greater than HX. And that again makes sense because you know that your HX is a monotonically decreasing function with X. So if I was to calculate the HX value at a given X, the value of HX, then that is definitely going to be less than the average value of HX from X equal to 0 to that point, because the function is decreasing. So its average value from 0 to X is definitely going to be more than the local value at that X. Okay. Is that clear? Okay, so these ideas, when you solve problems, you will see that they'll help you to check if you've made a gross mistake in the calculation. So if you see that your HX bar value is coming out to be less than HX, then something's wrong, because you know that H reduces, H goes down as X with X, so then HX bar has to be definitely more than the local H value. Any questions?
Yeah. So the HX bar will be higher than HX any local because on the left side of the HX bar will be the summation and average of the H from the left of it. So, and in the left of it there will be higher H. But sir, what about the point at which plate starts? At that point the H will be maximum, right?
Right,
So
right.
so at those points the difference shouldn't be there because it is what it is. Like the
Right.
HX
So
is.
there is no meaning of defining an HX bar for X equal to 0, right? Because you integrate from 0 to 0. So then it's just not, I mean, the quantity is not that helpful.
Okay.
Mathematically, you can define. So we define it as we take some X value which is greater than 0. And as soon as you take a value of X greater than 0, then you end up getting an HX bar, which is definitely more than the HX for that X value.
So like you're saying that for as an engineer we don't it is not relevant case.
Right. I mean, what is the meaning of defining an average at 0?
Yes,
If we
sir.
define an average for, if I say find the average of um, 0 numbers, that makes no sense. Right? You have to have
Yes,
a
sir.
few numbers to make an average, calculate an average.
Yes, sir. Uh,
Any other questions? All right. So now let's move to our next topic, which is finding the or deriving the equation for convection. Because once you have the equation for convection, you can solve it to get your temperature profile, which can then be used to calculate the H value. You can remember that we are still dealing with laminar flows because everything is much more organized. The theory is much more organized when you talk about laminar flows. When the flows become turbulent, as you know they do when you go further downstream in a boundary layer, then these equations that we're talking about are not valid because the velocity becomes quite random in the turbulent zone. Okay, so we definitely will discuss about the turbulent boundary layers or what happens when the boundary layers become turbulent. In fact, they are quite useful for us when we want to lose heat as quickly as possible. But nevertheless, we will derive the equations for the laminar case, and then we'll try to solve them using the mathematical tools that we have available with us, and then try to interpret the results, and then move on to the case of turbulent boundary layers. So we'll now talk about the convection equation. Now remember that, I mean, we're talking about heat transfer here. So that's energy balance. Okay, so we have in fluid mechanics, we've talked about the mass balance, which gave us the continuity equation. We talked about the momentum, not momentum balance, but the Newton's second law, which was force equals rate of change of linear momentum. So that gave us the momentum equations in x, y, and z directions. And then we now will be talking about the energy balance equation, which will then give us the convection equation. Okay. And again, for simplicity, we do this for our flat plate laminar boundary layer. Okay, so this is my thermal boundary layer. In this boundary layer region, I have, I take a control volume. So I'm talking about a 2D case. You can think of the third dimension as a very long dimension. So we take, we call this the control volume. So we'll be using energy balance, we'll be doing energy balance in this control volume, which is fixed in space. So let's zoom into this control volume. Again, for convenience, we have taken this volume in such a way so that it's a rectangle in my Cartesian directions. So that means this is my delta x, and this is my delta y. So let's do the energy balance now. So let's try to see what sort of energy is flowing in and out of this volume. So the first one is because you have some flow happening in the boundary layer in both x and y directions. So last time there was a question that do we have y velocities? Yes, we do have y velocities inside the boundary layer to ensure that the continuity is satisfied. Although that y velocity is not that huge in magnitude, but that is still there. Let's see. Let's take the different phases of this volume and then see what sort of energy is flowing through that phase. So from this left phase, we have fluid flowing into this phase, and that fluid is bringing in some kinetic energy. I'll mention on the top that I'll call it energy balance. Okay. So this we'll call kinetic energy that is being brought in by the fluid that is flowing into this phase of the control volume. And then we also have this fluid that is flowing into this phase is also bringing in some enthalpy. If you remember from your thermodynamics, then we used to talk about the enthalpy that the fluid is bringing. Talk of situations where you have some flow, and we always used to talk about the specific enthalpy. It's an enthalpy per unit mass, and then we used to multiply that by the mass flow rate to get the total watts of energy. So we'll say that enthalpy we just say enthalpy plus kinetic energy in. And then similarly, let's call this 1, so that we'll be writing lots of terms, so we'll know which term corresponds to which energy balance term. And then similarly on the right hand side phase, you have enthalpy plus the kinetic energy, and that is out. So we call this number 2. Then we also have the bottom phase. So we'll have similarly So we call this number 3. And to differentiate 1 and 3, we'll call 1 as X flow enthalpy, okay? Because it's flowing through an area which is delta X times the width of this control volume. So we'll call this X flow, okay? Because we're talking about the flow component in the X direction. Then we have, let's call this. Similarly, we have a fourth term, which is a Y flow enthalpy plus kinetic energy flowing out. Then for energy balance, we also have heat that is conducting through this control volume. Okay, the heat conduction is still happening, although the fluid is flowing, but conduction still happens. Okay. And remember that conduction happens because of the gradient of temperature. So we said that our Q double prime was minus K grad T. So heat flux is a vector. And then to find the amount of energy flowing through an area, we can take a dot product of this vector with the area through which we want to calculate this. So anyways, heat conduction's happening in this case. Now, since heat conduction happens because of the gradient of temperature, we know that inside a boundary layer, inside a thermal boundary layer, the gradient of temperature in Y direction is much more than the gradient of temperature in the X direction. Okay? So what we do is, in this case, we neglect the conduction from left to right along the X direction. It's only the conduction in the Y direction that will be prominent here. So we won't even talk about conduction in the X direction. We call this number 5. And then we have heat conduction out, or that is number 6. Okay. There's one more energy that we have to consider, and that is called the viscous dissipation or viscous work. So you know that when you have a viscous fluid, if you take a glass full of honey and then you mix it for a very long time, then you will increase the temperature. This effect becomes much more prominent when you're talking about supersonic flows. The viscous effects, the shearing of one layer above the other, this work that one layer is doing over the other can result in, will result in heat getting generated. So this is some sort of work done by the fluid. So we call it, we won't talk too much about it, but we definitely should know the term and the expression for that. So we call this viscous work in. Because one layer is slipping over the other. So they are doing work, and then this we call viscous work. So this we call as number 7. And then we have a viscous work out, which we call number 8. Okay. So let's now write the expressions for the different terms. So for the first one, which is X flow enthalpy plus kinetic energy in, that is from the left boundary. So in this case, the enthalpy we'll call I, that is the enthalpy per unit mass, and then we have to multiply that by the mass flow rate from this left boundary. Now the mass flow rate can be written as the density times the volume flow rate. Omega is the volume of this. So we use omega dot for the volume flow rate. So rho times omega dot is m dot, and then this omega dot, which is the volume flow rate, for this case, since the fluid is almost in the horizontal direction, so this omega dot can be written as the cross sectional area, that is my delta x times 1, okay, multiplied by the x velocity, which is u. So that gives me the volume flow rate in this case. So this is my x flow enthalpy that is in. So this gives me the watts of this gives me the watts that are flowing in because of enthalpy. And then I need the kinetic energy as well. Now the kinetic energy is nothing but half. In this case, since we want the watts, m dot, and then we have the we write the total u dot u, which is u square plus v square. So we'll write that as so that gives us the kinetic energy that's flowing in. In fact, on the left hand side, we actually what we have done is we have taken the area. So we've taken a dot product between the area and the flow direction, because if the flow was happening in this direction, then you won't get any enthalpy in. So this u that you get is because of the if you have taken the vector velocity, you multiply by, you take a dot product with the normal vector, then you end up getting the x component only, which is u. So we always talk of energy as some flux dotted with the area that gives you the watts. All right. So this the second term where you have the m dot. The m dot again can be written as your density times delta x times 1 times your x velocity here, which is u. Okay. So I can combine a couple of terms. I can take delta x and u out along with the rho. In fact, this v is much smaller, so we can sort of neglect this as well, because in this particular problem, we know that inside in the flat plate boundary layer, the way we have chosen the control volume, the flow is primarily in the x direction. So in this case, we don't need to write the v as well. And I keep the delta x on the right hand side. Sorry, this should have been delta y, because this was delta y. Okay, so that's my term number 1. I hope that is clear. Next, we write term number 2, but in this case, we use the same idea that we've used in the past. We will write, since the control volume is small, okay, so we say that for term number 2, we simply will take this expression that we have, and then we'll add an infinitesimal expression of the same kind. This plus del by del x of this whole thing times delta x, and we neglect the higher order terms. So this delta y can actually be taken out, because delta y does not depend. I mean, del by del x of delta y, well, delta y is a constant for that reason. So we get this expression. So that's number 2. Now, number 3, I don't need to do this again. I can simply use the same idea. Number 3 is what is flowing from the bottom boundary, which is this one. So in the expression, we'll have rho. Now remember this u that we are seeing here, that emerged from that emerged from when we are calculating m dot, that is a mass flow rate. In this case, we're talking about mass flow rate through the bottom boundary. So we'll be interested in the y component. So when we do a flux dot area, we get this y component. We'll have a v here, and then in this expression you'll have the enthalpy that you are talking about. So we'll give the general expression I for the enthalpy, and the next u square came from the kinetic energy. So we had u square plus v square. So remember again, for the fluid, v is much smaller than u, so we still retain the u square from the kinetic energy expression. And this, instead of delta y, we have a delta x, because we're talking about the bottom boundary. So the area is delta x times the width. So we're doing everything for a unit width. That's the reason we dimensionally don't have another length here. So that's the energy flowing in from the bottom boundary. Similarly, the energy flowing out from the top boundary now becomes this expression. And then we have a del by del y times delta x delta y. Okay. Okay, so we are almost out of time today. I'll stop here and I'll continue the discussion tomorrow, when we'll write the expression for the other terms, that is term number 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we will do a balance. So we'll say that the rate of energy flowing in to the volume is equal to the rate of energy flowing out from this volume, because we're talking about a steady state situation where the temperature inside this control volume has stabilized with time. And once we do this energy balance, or the rate of energy balance, we will be able to derive the convection equation. So I'll stop the recording here, and in case you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Sir,